Good morning and welcome to NEHRA Newsmakers. I'm Tracy Burns, the CEO of the Northeast HR Association. Joining us this morning is Aaron Green, the CEO and founder of the Professional Staffing Group. Good morning, Aaron.
Morning, Tracy.
So we are just a little over a week away from our 21st annual Diversity and Inclusion Awards Gala. Believe it or not, it's been 21 years. And this year it's being held at the Westin Copley Hotel. And we anticipate, again, close to 500 people coming. So it's always such a great celebratory night with some really good messaging mixed in there as well. Noah Galloway is our keynote speaker this year. Many people would probably recognize him from Dancing with the Stars, although there's a lot more to his story. He's actually a double amputee, having been injured in a roadside bomb during a 2005 deployment to Iraq. So we're really looking forward to having him talk to us next week and learn more about his story. He seems like a really great guy from all the interactions we've had with him so far. But as you know, Aaron, because you've been close to this for so long, that quite often the most inspiring stories come from the scholarship winners. And especially given that they're, so young, and they're usually so incredibly poised, and they have these wonderful stories. So today we're going to focus on the two winners. And if you could just start by telling us a little bit about the process that the committee goes through, and then we'll hone in on the two winners and why you decided to choose them over the couple dozen that you had apply this year.
Sure, and thanks for having me. This is I know we do a lot of these podcasts over the course of the year, and this is absolutely my favorite one. I just love talking about the program and the gala. So the process that we go through, so first of all, we field a group of volunteers. So this is people who are part of NEHRA, who care a lot about diversity and inclusion, and are interested in really donating their time, because most of the time it's off hours, et cetera, to going through reviewing applications. So we put together a committee, typically 8 to 10 people that are involved in the committee, at a similar number this year. And they'll go and review the applications, and then we'll select, based on our review process, select 6 students that we want to interview in person. So the first part of the process is sort of a paper review, so to speak, and then the second part is we want to get to know the people behind the applications. And this year we had a real super competitive group of 6 people that we ended up interviewing. In fact, I was talking with the committee afterwards, and we decided that probably the 3rd and 4th ranked students, so not the 2 that received the scholarships, but the 3rd and 4th ranked students probably could have won a scholarship in any year in recent history. So it was a really good group. It was a tough decision that we had to make, and we're very excited about the 2 students who are receiving the scholarships for the Diversity and Inclusion Gala.
Right. So tell us, I know that you mentioned how competitive the landscape was this year. Tell us a little bit about the 2 winners. I know Mayerly and Bilal, ended up being, sort of your top 2 after going through the process. Tell us a little bit about them and how you chose them.
Sure. So this is interesting this year. In a somewhat, I'll say, twist of fate, so to speak. Bilal Lafta is an Iraqi war refugee, and we'll have him on the stage with Noah Galloway, who's an Iraqi war veteran. And it's just so interesting to think about sort of the routes that each of them took to end up on the stage with us that evening. Such different routes, and so important, the journeys that they went on unto themselves. So I'll talk a minute about Bilal. Bilal Lafta was born and lived in Baghdad. In 2005, some U.S. soldiers knocked on his door and told his family that they were no longer safe and they had to leave. And he went on a bit of a journey, leaving Iraq, and then spending time in refugee camps, and then to Egypt, and then finally making his way to Tucson, Arizona, which he described as not diverse at all. And in fact, his picture of his view of the United States was New York City, and he ended up in the desert in Arizona with people who are, weren't necessarily as inclusive, let's say, as where he is now in the city of Boston, or diverse as it is now in the city of Boston. that's interesting background. Not necessarily why we selected him though. Although certainly his journey was one that I think pales in comparison to many of ours. The work that he does in working closely with and really fighting for resources with the school system, with the Boston Public School System, and in working with the superintendents of schools, he's really a powerhouse, just a force for change, and does so in ways that improve the lives of the students around him, and in particularly improve some of the ensuring that maybe some of the schools that don't typically get the resources necessary to allow diverse students to grow and flourish. He's making sure that they're getting funding and really pushing the school system to think about things differently and engage in ways that that the school system hasn't in the past. So he's an incredibly strong voice, But I think one thing that he does quite well is he doesn't just simply go rail against authority, so to speak. He persuades authority, and at the end of the day, he's got to convince people that his view is right. And I think he's just done a remarkable job of just being a great voice for diversity within the school system.
That's amazing. I did get a chance to read his essay, and I agree with you that it's sort of ironic that we're having, that we have NOAA this year, but I think it offers also a different viewpoint than what people may think of when they think of war. So I think that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about Mayerly.
Sure. So she, the moment you say her full name, she says, "Call me Maya." So I'll call her Maya. So Maya, completely different view into something that a person who's sort of young and incredibly powerful in her own sort of quiet way. I'll say many of us would think that the Boston public school systems, with quite a bit of fanfare actually and notoriety, I'll say, were desegregated years ago. Maya's view on the segregation that takes place in the school system isn't necessarily institutional in terms of maybe the way the school is thinking about segregation, but she talked how when she first came to public school and she went to kindergarten, all the kids, as she said, sat with kids that were like them. So you had the black kids sitting with the black kids, the Hispanic kids sitting with the Hispanic kids, the white kids sitting with the white kids, although they broke up into some of their smaller subgroups. And she always felt it was wrong. And finally, in ninth grade, and one of the reasons she felt it was wrong, we have to backtrack a bit. One of the reasons she felt it was wrong, or the primary reason, was black and half Hispanic, so she didn't know where to sit, and she felt out of place in school for years. And when she reached the ripe old age of being in ninth grade, she decided that she was going to desegregate her own study hall, and took the kids and started moving them around and forcing them to sit with, not physically, but sort of, by speaking to them, sit with kids that weren't like them. So those kids got to know each other, and they began sort of, communicating on a different level than they had in the past. And that just struck us as so powerful. As I said, she doesn't come, she's not loud, she's quite quiet in what she does, but just so powerful in terms of taking steps and doing something that was really hard and probably would have created fear in many of us, and just being that sort of force and voice for change within her study group, within her school in ninth grade, and taking that step of sort of desegregating the kids that were. It's just such an amazing story to hear,
That's great. And like I said,
go back to like what makes what this scholarship's about. It's about that.
Right. And you wish, I'm sure, that you could give it to all of them, all 6 of them. So,
Absolutely.
The great thing is, due to your generosity and the support from Professional Staffing Group, we are giving each of the scholarship winners $5,000 again this year, which I think is incredible. And I'm sure will help support whatever college dreams that they have, which I'm sure they'll probably share it with us on stage next week. Thank you again for doing this. Like I've mentioned before, you've been involved with NEHRA longer than I have, but we really appreciate your support and your time. I mean, I know your time is really valuable, so we really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you on the 28th. So this wraps up this version of NEHRA Newsmakers. Join us next month when we talk about how to get into the C-suite. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye.